Gig 'em. That's what they're saying at Texas A&M today. Oh my goodness, the Aggies signing the best recruiting class in history, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. An amazing class from Jimbo Fisher as they now enter kind of rarefied air here and maybe a new era for Texas A&M as they try to win their first national championship since 1939. And history shows, despite A&M's lack of success on the national stage, that should happen. Why is that? I did a little research, and this is incredible. A&M at number one overall in the history of the 24/7 Sports Composite right now. If you look back at the top 10 recruiting classes ever in college football history, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite, 7 of those 10 have either played for or won the national championship. 7 of the top 10. Now get this. One of those classes hasn't really had a chance to play for it yet because it's Ohio State 2021's recruiting class. So they only just now had their first opportunity to play for one, and they didn't make it. They reached the Rose Bowl this past season. So they got 3 more seasons. You know, each class would kind of go on a 4-year window. You know, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, etc. So Ohio State's still got 3 more years to see if they can play for a national championship. Odds are it's probably going to happen, judging by other history. The other 2 schools that didn't play for a national championship are USC with their 2006 class and Florida with their monstrous 2010 signing class that up until a year ago was number 1 ever. And if the playoff was around back then with USC and Florida, both of those classes would have played for a national championship in the playoff at some point. They both were in the top 4 at the end of the regular season and at the end of their conference championship games and would have played for national championships in a playoff. So technically, if you look at it, 9 of 10 teams of those top 10 have reached the playoff or would have played for it. And this 10th team is Ohio State, and they still have 3 more chances to do it. So if you're A&M, the expectations now are through the roof. It's national championship or bust. It really is for Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher because they have won the number 1 class ever at Texas A&M and in college football history, but also because look at the way they've been recruiting under Jimbo Fisher before that. In 2021, it was the number 8 class. 2020, number 6. 2019, the number 4 recruiting class. And if you go back through history, no team, based off my research, no team in college football history since internet recruiting's been around has reached the national championship and won it without at least one top 10 class nationally. And Texas A&M has top 10 classes each of the last 4 years, including the best class in college football history with 2022. More stats about these teams that are in the top 10 that I want to share with you here. All right, this is based off my own research of the 24/7 Sports Composite. Those 7 teams that have played or won for a national championship in the top 10 overall classes, 7 combined national championships among those teams. Those 7 classes combined for 13 national championship game appearances. And every number 1 class in a single year, every class that ranked number 1 between 2011 and 2020, they've won or gone on to win a national championship. That's incredible. Of course, Alabama has been dominating those rankings, but not always. So look at A&M's class. It's built in the trenches, but especially in that defensive line. That defensive line is monstrous, led by Walter Nolan and Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy. 2 5-star kids. Walter Nolan is the best signee ever in Texas A&M history. He edges out Myles Garrett, who was a superstar, obviously, for the Aggies just a few years ago. Incredible signing class. Every skilled player, 25 skilled players signed in this 28-man recruiting class. Every single one of them are a blue chip. And by blue chip, I mean they're 4-star or a 5-star kid. The 3 prospects overall who were not 4 or 5 stars, who were not blue chips, one of them is a kicker. And kickers are never rated 4 or 5 star guys, even if they're a top rated kicker. Insane. This Aggies class is generational. And I'll tell you this, I can't wait to see what they could do down the line. Looking forward and looking ahead, the recruiting's not going to slow down for A&M. They might have the top class again in number 1 overall in 2023. And the coach we need to highlight here is the 24/7 Sports Recruiter of the Year, defensive line coach Elijah Robinson. He was responsible for 8 signees in this class. 5 of them, he was a primary recruiter. 2 of them were 5 stars, 5 were 4 stars. And of course, he was a primary recruiter on Walter Nolan, the best signee ever in Texas A&M history, and Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy, who, by the way, was a late flip from Oklahoma, just up the road, on December 6th. He had committed to Oklahoma, decommitted, and committed to the Aggies on December 6th. What's this mean for the Aggies in the future? It's national championship or bust, as I said. The pressure's on Jimbo Fisher. It's just too bad for Fisher that he went on his signing day press conference and decided to come out against coaches talking about NIL and all these rumors about there being a $30 million NIL fund to pay Texas A&M players. He should have focused on the class and how historic it was. And of course, he did talk about it, but the quotes and all the buzzwords are going to be coming out of that is him calling other coaches in the SEC clown acts for saying that Texas A&M had this NIL fund, and that's why the Aggies had this number 1 class, instead of focusing really on the incredible work his staff did, led by Elijah Robinson. Only 36 years old, a rising star. Everybody's going to be wanting him as a recruiter in the future. But down the line, this is huge for A&M for another reason. Texas and OU are joining the SEC here in the next 4 years at some point. And at that point, it's going to become even more difficult for A&M to get these top-tier talents in the state of Texas, especially against the Longhorns. Listen, since A&M joined the SEC back in 2012, they have flipped the scales against Texas. Texas used to dominate with the blue chip prospects inside the state of Texas, and that has literally flipped. If you look at the numbers in these last 10 years, it's flipped. The Aggies are on the winning side of those battles, whereas Texas A&M's playing catch up. The Aggies still had like a top 6 class this year, and they're going to continue inching closer to the top 5, top 3, maybe number 1 once they get in the SEC. There is something about the SEC that helps these teams recruit. Just ask Texas A&M. Their recruiting has skyrocketed since they joined the SEC when they left the Big 12. So the Aggies getting a little bit of a jump start here and kind of puffing their chests and going, come at us, Longhorns. We've got the number 1 class ever, and we could plan on continuing that in 2023 and beyond. These recruiting battles in the future are going to be a lot of fun to watch. And of course, when we actually see these kids get to play against one another, and hopefully the Aggies and Longhorns start playing annually once again, it's going to be insane. The SEC continues to dominate the recruiting trail. And one more note before I go. Don't forget about Alabama. They're going to have the most talented roster in college football next season. You all know that. But get this. That list of the top 10 recruiting classes ever in college football history, 3 of them are from Alabama, and their rosters, and the roster next season for Alabama is going to be comprised of 3 of those top 10 classes ever in college football history. Talk about just horribly talented. It's going to be ridiculous. It might end up being the most talented team that we've seen in recent history in college football. And that's insane to think, considering what we saw from LSU in 2019 and Alabama just a year and a half ago in 2020. The Crimson Tide, they're not going anywhere, and they're the favorite to win a national championship for a reason. But Texas A&M, they're finally in the hunt. They've never been to the playoff. They've never been to the SEC championship game. The pressure's on. It's national title or bust. History shows that in recruiting with the 24/7 Sports Composite. And if you don't win one, Jimbo Fisher, it all comes down to you as a coach, not the players.